Dolphins fans, how are we doing today? It is Ben Morgan of the Fins Up Network. Thursday's practice report, day 2 of on-field action for your Miami Dolphins. A day that, yes, once again, won primarily by the defense, but I think it's a practice report and a practice day that's going to be highlighted more so by who was not on the field in comparison to the players that were actually on the field. Unfortunately, we have to talk about this kind of stuff. We will get all into that in a second. Before we do, you know what? Let's just open the can of worms. In the comments today, drop your thoughts on the Tua contract situation, how you see things playing out, what your current thoughts are. Go ahead, drop your comments in that section. That is what they are there for. But like I said, let's just jump into the action because, yes, we saw Tua work in a limited capacity, limited fashion on Wednesday on the first day of on-field action. Basically, took snaps in individual drills in the 7-on-7s and then was limited to 2 snaps in the 11-on-11 action. Ended up doing 2 handoffs. So threw no passes in team drills. Today, day 2, limited to simply being a spectator at today's practice. He did have an earpiece in, so sort of taking those mental reps, hearing the calls that were put into the quarterback, so at least being tuned into the play calls that way. But that was it. Now, I'm going to start by saying that I asked about this, and I was told the following. Yes, Tua sat out today, but it's not as dire as people think. He was going to be very limited with his work today anyways, but then he decided to just sit out all of that, all of the practice. So with that said, I don't think this is going to be the new norm for Tua moving forward up until the point that the day is reached. It kind of feels like maybe it was a little bit of an outlier situation. Mike McDaniel talked about it. Things are going to be a little bit fluid. We're going to see how things go with training camp. It might be moving around on a day-to-day basis. And I know that Barry Jackson, one of the beat reporters, put out a tweet as well that said, we can't be having this day on, day off. When are we going to get to? Are we going to have him today? Are we going to not have him tomorrow? And I agree with that to an extent. You got to kind of keep the players' thoughts in mind here as well. I mean, end of the day, this is his job. You want to maximize your earnings at your job, correct? So I get that. But at the same point in time, I don't necessarily like the idea of telling Tua, like, guess what? We're at an impasse right now. We can't reach a deal with you right now. Show up, play this thing out. We'll talk about a contract a little bit later. I don't know if that's particularly the time to do this either, because at a point in time, we've talked about this before as well. The salary cap has gone up. The salary cap is going to continue to go up with the Jared Goffs of the world getting contracts, with Trevor Lawrence getting contract, with Tua, with Dak, Jordan Love. All of these guys are going to end up being these highest paid quarterbacks. Well, guess what? It's just a matter of time until you're Justin Herbert's, you're Joe Burrow's, you're Patrick Mahomes. All these other guys are going to end up eclipsing those deals. So you keep looking further down the road, and eventually this deal's not going to look all that crazy. He's going to end up slotting a little bit lower into those highest paid quarterbacks, sort of like what we're seeing with Jalen Waddle. We paid him what appears to be a lot right now, but man, that wide receiver market is blowing up, and we're going to look at his deal 2-3 years down the line and say, you know what, we got Jalen Waddle on a pretty good contract right now. So we're going to see how all that plays out. We'll see if it becomes the new norm. But if I'm making a prediction on it today, I think today was probably maybe a little bit more of an outlier situation. And yeah, that's just probably me doing a little bit more speculating than anything, but I don't necessarily think it is the blueprint for Tua moving forward. Like I said, we will see how that plays out. Let's get into what actually happened on the field, because yes, that is very important as well. And if you're looking at the quarterbacks, you had Mike White, you had Skylar Thompson, you have Gavin Hardison taking all those quarterback snaps with Tua Tagovailoa being a spectator. It did sound like today, day 2, went a little bit smoother than day 1, but still, like I said, defense kind of that unquestioned winner of the day if you want to assign a winner and a loser to the offense or the defense. Mike White was noted with hitting Alec Ingold on a long touchdown on a wheel route, easy for me to say, in 7-on-7 action. Skylar Thompson connected deep with Tyreek Hill on the final snap of team drills as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that play in a second here. Talk about a tough day, though. It sounds like Chris Brooks really didn't he missed Wednesday's practice. He comes back on Thursday, and it didn't go all that well. Fumbled a pitch that hit him right in the hands, out of the backfield, obviously, on a pitch play, which didn't go well. And then he proceeded to drop a pass during team drills as well. And we talked about it earlier this offseason that the running back room is kind of like the wide receiver room, as it's getting pretty deep. It's getting pretty competitive. You can't really have too many bad days in a row before, you know what, when it comes time for roster decisions, we're going to think back on this. Who performed when the pressure was on? Who's going to end up getting those roster spots? Because it's Mostert, it's Achane, it's Jalen Wright. Those three are making it. Throw Alec Ingold in there if you want to include the fullback. Well, that's already four guys. How many running backs, fullbacks are this team going to keep? Is Jeff Wilson going to make it because he's got a little bit more veteran going for him? Can Chris Brooks end up challenging for that position because he'll be a cheaper option than Jeff Wilson? Well, at this point in time, you're not going to keep a cheaper option just for the fact that he's cheaper if he's not performing on the field. So very important for Chris Brooks to probably have a turnaround sooner rather than later. Moving on to the wide receivers, Jalen Waddle for the second straight day, noted for impressive off-frame catches. Obviously, his offseason continues to go pretty well. And then we talked about Tyreek Hill's long catch to end practice. The reports have Ethan Bonner just draped all over him in coverage. Somehow the ball found its way in there. Some of the reporters thought it was picked off or was going to be picked off. Regardless, Tyreek come down with an unreal catch to end practice. So yes, there are some positives to today's report as well. In regards to the tight ends, Jonnu Smith got a veteran rest day. I asked my connection to see if there was a little bit more about the tight ends from training camp so far that just hasn't been reported by the local media. We're not seeing a lot from the tight ends right now. I was told kind of by design. The tight ends right now are working more so on their blocking schemes and everything. The plan is to roll out more of the tight end as pass catcher packages a little bit further into training camp on some of the days when media and fans are not out there. So maybe we're not going to see too much from the tight ends. Doesn't mean that it's not happening. They keep some of that stuff under wraps. Offensive line, who had a very tough go at it on yesterday. Well, we saw Teron Armstead have a rest day again today. As we noted yesterday, we're going to see a lot of those moving forward with Teron Armstead. Obviously, we need to get reps with our ones in these practices, but at the end of the day, Teron Armstead's health, remember when he got hurt in that joint practice, I believe it was last year, his long-term health, keeping him healthy through the regular season, trumps anything that we're going to be doing in July and August. But like I said, the offensive line again today just struggled in general. Keep in mind, like I said, no Teron Armstead, no Isaiah Wynn, who remains on the PUP list, but allowing too much pressure on quarterbacks, allowing too much penetration on run plays, and the pads aren't even on yet. So yeah, that's a unit right now that's probably the most disappointing unit that we have seen so far in training camp. On to the defensive side of the ball. Sorry if there was a little jump in the video there. I had to hit pause real quick. Also a veteran rest day for Calais Campbell, who's obviously brand new to the team. There's going to be a lot of veteran rest days, I feel like. There was a lot today. That's kind of a theme that we're going to see throughout camp here. Not abnormal. All NFL teams end up doing this. But Emmanuel Ogbah, talk about a guy coming back with a vengeance. Credited with another sack today. He was the team's orange jersey wear after the performance that he had in practice on Wednesday as well. He kind of labeled his return to the Dolphins here as, I had unfinished business. And that's, like I said, that's kind of how he labeled his return to Miami. He is showing, and I know it's a small sample size, it's only 2 days of training camp on-field action, showing that he's a pretty damn good fit in this defense so far. And yeah, I know the offensive line has had its struggles and pads aren't on yet. But I tell you what, considering what we have right now at the edge with a couple of the young guys, obviously our two best guys being on PUP, the more positive reports that we can get from our edge players, the absolute better. And I've talked yesterday about Emmanuel Ogbah's ability as a veteran, his ability to be a 3-down edge player, to set the edge in the run game. Those are all very underrated things that he brings to the table and so far has brought during training camp so far. Speaking of some of the young guys, Chop Robinson ended up combining with Cam Brown on a would-be sack for the second straight day. Chop is getting some nice reviews so far. Unfortunately, I haven't heard too much about Mohamed Kamara. However, Chop seemingly looking to be the part so far as that first-round pick. So that's obviously good news to hear. Travis Wingfield of the Dolphins Drive Time podcast noted Quentin Bell once again, another standout day. Said he's a physical edge presence and had a productive rush day overall. So yeah, talk about productive reports. Quentin Bell is now 2 for 2 on those. Wingfield also noted linebackers Jordan Brooks and Anthony Walker, both looking impressive. Said they feed off of each other, play with each other very well. And there was production from both players in both the run and the pass game in both practices that we've had so far. And we actually talked a little bit about Anthony Walker during minicamp and OTAs and saying, you know what? I kind of thought this guy was depth, some special team stuff. So far this offseason, they are getting their money's worth by all accounts on a guy like Anthony Walker. So it could be a very underrated free agent signing from this offseason. We'll wrap things up with the secondary. As we noted yesterday, the Jevon Holland injury was more of a scare than anything, held out for precautionary reasons. He was back on the practice field today. Kader Kohu with a nice day on the defensive side of the ball. Numerous reports had him doing well today, credited with at least 2 pass breakups, depending on the reports that you were getting. Unfortunately, Cam Smith, we saw him on the wrong end of a completion to Tyreek Hill yesterday. It's Tyreek Hill. That's going to happen. But on the wrong end of the Alec Ingold wheel route today. So that's a little bit unfortunate to hear. Both Kendall Fuller and Jordan Poyer were given veteran rest days. Poyer did do some individual and some positional drills, but didn't do any of the teamwork. But with Poyer out, Elijah Campbell gets a few more snaps, ended up bringing down an interception off of Mike White. It actually sounds like he would have had 2 interceptions. However, Jevon Holland was also coming in for the ball, ended up tipping it away. So almost 2 interceptions there for Elijah Campbell. Regardless, a couple of nice plays that we had there. Dolphins fans, that is what we have got for today's on-field and then kind of on the sideline or off-field action. As always, if you haven't gotten subscribed yet, make sure you are doing so. We will be back with reports from every single day of training camp when there is news to report. We will wrap it for there today, Miami Dolphins fans. But until next time, fins up.